What's going on off the record, fans? It is Monday, April 28th. I hope you're having a great Monday. Sometimes Mondays aren't the best day, but we had some great weather here in sunny Pennsylvania for once. Beautiful outside. We've got some news for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. I always do. Let's get straight to it. So, I don't know if you've ever heard of this band. Green Day? Punk rock's reluctant superstars. So, Green Day, from dirty basements in Berkeley to global domination, from teenage rebellion to political outrage, and yes, from backstage brawls to stadium singalongs. Green Day's story isn't just about punk rock, it's about breaking every rule on the way to changing music forever. So, humble, hectic beginnings. Our story starts with an East Bay of California, mid-1980s. Two kids, Billy Joe Armstrong and Mike Pritchard, who largely go by Mark Durnett. I don't know the story behind that one. They meet in elementary school. Classic story. Instant bond over music. They grew up on classic rock like The Who, and punk like Sex Pistols. And so by age 14, they were playing music together in a band called Sweet Children. I wonder if they were sweet children, though. In 1989, a big decision, they changed their name to Green Day. I wonder how they came apart that. Slang term for spending the day getting high. Huh. I wonder why teenagers would come up with that. A wink to their stoner teenage ways. The band was pure-hearted and they had a hustle. Tiny gigs, tiny crowds, enormous dreams. So Green Day became a staple at 924 Gilman Street, a legend DIY venue in Berkeley. Philadelphia has a lot of DIY venues like that. If you're in the chat down below and you're from the Philadelphia area, list some DIY venues or wherever you're from. Tell us where you're from and what DIY venues they have in your area, if you know. So Gilman wasn't just any club, it was an institution. It was run by a collective with strict no corporate, no mainstream rules. It birthed bands like Operation Ivy and Rancid, huge punk classic bands. And if you were a punk, you had to play the Gilman. So, and Green Day, they owned the stage there. It was like their home. Their first releases on Lookout Records started building an underground buzz. Kerplunk sold over 50,000 copies, basically unheard of for indie punk bands at the time. Although I did have a conversation with the drummer for CKY. They did the same thing before they got signed, but again, they had Bam Margera helping them with playing their music on the skate videos. So, selling 500 copies, that's where the major labels came knocking. So, the great sellout drama and Dookie explosion. In 1993, Green Day signed with Reprise Records, part of Warner Brothers' subsidiary label. If you remember the 90s, they were buying up little labels like crazy. And the punk community, they flipped out. Gilman Street banned them. Punks called them traitors. It was brutal for the band, but Billy Joe wasn't apologizing. In fact, he doubled down. He said, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be part of a scene. I grew up thinking that I was going to be a rock star. Mic drop. That is a rock star quote. It's also something young 20-something-year-old punk guy would say. So in February of 1994, Dookie was unleashed. Not released, unleashed. So producer Rob Cavallo, who fought to sign them, it was packed with instant anthems like Longview, Basket Case, When I Come Around, and Welcome to Paradise. I don't know if you've heard those songs. They're all Green Day classics for sure. MTV put them on blast 24/7. They played Lollapalooza 94, Their infamous mud fight at Woodstock 94 became legendary. And Dookie sold over 10 million copies in the US alone. I had friends that went to Woodstock 94 and they were talking about the mud fights. I saw the massive pictures of all the destruction that happened. That was a crazy year. So they won a Grammy for Best Alternative Album. Green Day were no longer the underdogs. They became the kings. So let's get into their rise, rebellion, and rowdiness. The 90s were the wild years. So post Dookie, Green Day released Insomniac in 95. Darker, faster, and meaner, for sure. Billy Joe said it was, quote, angrier, more pissed off music, unquote. It wasn't a commercially successful album, but it cemented their punk credibility. I'm hoping that venue unblocked them from playing. So then came Nimrod in 97. So a strange, sprawling record with hardcore punk, quote, platypus, right next to the folk ballad Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, which is also probably one of everybody's favorite songs. Good Riddance iconically became a prom song across America that year, even though it was written as a sarcastic breakup song. Right down below, what was your prom dance? What was your prom theme song? I want to say my class. It was Eve's. Want to put my heart in a blender. Whatever that song was my class's. It was 2001, so par for the course. So the album Morning came out in 2000. And followed acoustic guitars, storytelling lyrics, and a pivot towards more mature sound for the band. Commercially, it flopped compared to Dookie. Critics thought Green Day were over at that point. Boy, were they wrong. 2004, American Idiot. Another mic drop for that band. If Dookie made them stars, American Idiot made them immortal in the scene. There was no normal out. This was no normal album. It was a punk rock opera. It told the story of Jesus of suburbia, a lost kid trying to survive suburban hell. It slammed George W. Bush, his administration, the Iraq War, corporate media, and American empathy. So American Idiot, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Holiday, Wake Me Up When September Ends, hit after hit from that album. That album was massive. The record won Grammy Awards. It sold 6 million copies and birthed a freaking Broadway musical adaptation. Green Day didn't just bounce back, they rewrote the rules. Guys, 16 million copies, not streams, not, hey, check out my MySpace, check out my SoundCloud, what? It was all physical CDs. And I'm pretty sure they were selling for like $18 a CD then. So their shows went from packed clubs to headlining stadiums. They became one of the most important political bands of the decade, influencing a whole generation of younger artists. So Billy, Mike, and Trey, the people behind the madness. So Billy Joel Armstrong, vocalist, guitarist, the creative force, quick-witted, politically charged with deep emotions, struggled openly with addiction and depression, but always channeled it into unforgettable songs. So Mike, bass player and vocalist, Billy's lifelong best friend, super underrated as a bassist. His bass lines carry Green Day's sound. Think of your favorite Green Day songs, especially when you start getting those loud punk songs. I can hear those bass lines. That's the sign of a really good bassist. So the bassist went through hell personally. He lost his father really young, rough upbringing, and he just poured it into his playing, which is what you see from a lot of really well-known musicians. Trey Cool, the drummer, he officially joined in 1990. Wild, hilarious, sometimes unhinged. He brings that chaotic punk energy from insane drum riffs and fills to setting his drums and occasionally himself on fire on the stage. I saw a really cool video of it was a younger girl ran onto the stage and just gave him a huge hug while he was still playing drums. It was really cute. Their bond, as close as brothers, through divorces, rehab, fame, fights, they never broke up. They are one of rock's tightest units that are out there. Let's get into feuds, fights, and meltdowns, the spicy stuff. So Smash Mouth's beef in 1999. Smash Mouth accused Green Day of stealing their style. Billy Joel's response, I can't wait for this. I think the only thing we have in common with Smash Mouth is they're from California. And even that's embarrassing. Unquote. That was brutal. The guy is brutal with his comebacks, no matter what it is. Let's see, the iHeart Radio rant in 2012. Green Day's set was cut short to make room for Usher. Billy Joel exploded. He smashed his guitar, cursed out the organizers, and screamed, "I'm not Justin Bieber, you mother effers," unquote. After it became out, Billy needed treatment for alcohol and prescription drug dependency. We've all seen that guy that's had a little too much at the bar, getting a little too hung up on whatever it was that caught his eye that night. It's to be expected with that abuse. So, American Idiot, Political Fury. After releasing American Idiot, Green Day, they were blacklisted from some of the conservative outlets. Talk radio stations called them out for boycotts, and Billy Joe simply said, "quote If you're pissing off the wrong people, you're probably doing something right. You're probably doing something right." Unquote. He always has a quick, just like bash them in the head statement. Gilman Street Band. Even years later, they were still controversial amongst the old school punks for selling out in 1994. Some punks still refuse to forgive them. Billy Joel's attitude is, quote, you can't punk police me. Punk is freedom," unquote. Man, this guy's got great quotes. I might not agree with all of his political perceptions and everything, but the guy knows how to fire back, which I'm a guy who loves to fire back. So, friends and favorite tour mates, let's get into this. So, Green Day doesn't gatekeep punk. They lift up bands they love. So, Weezer and Fall Out Boy, 2021, the Hella Mega Tour. I'm sorry, not MAGA. Hella Mega Tour was a huge triple bill. 3 bands, 3 generations of fans. Like I said in the show the other day, this younger generation listens to everything. It's really cool to go to these concerts of bands that I grew up with, and you see, honestly, my friends' kids at the shows with them. So the Interrupters, a ska punk revivalist, Billy Joel's personally championed them as one of his favorite modern bands. They are a good punk band, or a good ska band. Pansy Division. In the 90s, they brought out Pansy Division, a groundbreaking queer punk band when no one was doing that in the mainstream rock scene at all. So let's get into secret side projects. Green Day moonlighted as The Network in the early 2000s, a bizarre new wave band wearing masks and attacking themselves. Honestly, hilarious and weird and perfectly Green Day. So let's see. Foxborough Hot Tubs was another side band. Loose, fun, kind of 60s inspired garage rock. So Green Day loves the underdogs, the weirdos, and the raw garbage bands because that's who they are at heart. So let's get into, in 2020, they released Father of All Mother Effers. a short, fast, almost garage rock record that polarized their fans. Some loved it, some hate it. Green Day didn't care. When does Green Day ever care? Billy said, quote, "We needed to have fun again," unquote. Don't we all? And in 2004, they released the album Saviors, another shot of punk adrenaline. It's clear they're not slowing down, this band. Their world tour is packed. Their influence is bigger than ever. Billy Joe even launched an amazing side gig in musicals, Broadway shows, and guest starring on TV. Cool. So Green Day is now recognized alongside the bands like The Clash, The Ramones, even Nirvana. They reshaped punk for a new era, keeping the heart, ditching the gatekeeping, and providing improving that you can grow up without selling out your soul. So Green Day didn't follow punk rock rules. They rewrote them. They didn't stop when they got banned, canceled, ridiculed, or doubted. They got louder. They're messy, brilliant, hilarious, pissed off, and beautifully human. As long as there's a guitar, an amp, a middle finger, Green Day's story isn't ending anytime soon. Thanks for following that story. It's a band that has a crazy history. So, next band, I hope you guys have heard this band, Microwave. I've been listening to them since their first album came out. The drummer of my band, when we were Awaking Mercury, before we changed names to Sunblind, we asked him, what are you listening to lately, Dylan? He goes, Microwave. We laughed. Kitchen appliance? So let's talk about this band. They have mastered the tightrope walk between emotionally vulnerable and pure explosive energy. Microwave. Coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, also where Manchester Orchestra is from, they formed in 2012 and quickly became torchbearers for the emo and alternative rock scene in the 2010s era. Their sound, a little bit emo revival, a little bit grunge, and a little bit hardcore edge, and a whole lot of emotion, honestly. If you read his lyrics, even the way he writes his lyrics it's something new, especially for that scene. And I love his vocals. They kind of remind me if Manchester Orchestra had more of a post-hardcore and punk influence. And if, Andy had a lot more rasp in his voice, a little bit more edge. The band consists of Nathan on vocal and guitars, Tyler on bass and backing vocals, and drummer Timothy. So together they've crafted a discography that feels both introspective and cathartic, the kind of music you can scream along to at a basement show, but also sit with it till 2 a.m. thinking about your life. I couldn't tell you how many times I've listened to that first album just driving at night and just thinking about life, going through whatever mental thing you're trying to get through that week. I'm telling you guys, this would be an album on my top 10 that I would tell people to check out. So let's get into Nathan Hardy's Mormon background and its impact on the band. So Microwave's DNA is much tied to Nathan's personal struggles with religion. So Nathan Hardy was raised as a devout Mormon, and he even completed a full missionary experience. 2 years spent evangelizing, something that's incredibly demanding and isolating for young people. I grew up in the Christian church, evangelical, a non-denominational, if you know what that means, not Catholic. So I get where he's coming from. So when he returned, Harvey was left with a profound disillusionment. Leaving the Mormon church was no small decision. It often comes with personal loss, alienation from family and the community, and an intense emotional fallout. So Hardy's songwriting reflects all of this in their music. On the first major album, Stovall, that came out in 2014, Uh, the cracks in his faith and the trauma of breaking away are on full display on this album. I think that's kind of why I really dig into it emotionally. Tracks like Puking Pastils and the song Something Right. Something Right's a great song. Feature raw lyrics questioning meaning, God, and self-worth. Self-Right is definitely, it might be one of my favorite songs on that album. Hardy once described the album as a, quote, coming-of-age story of realizing everything you were taught might be wrong, unquote. Later albums showed an evolution, like Much Love in 2016 leans a little bit more into the existential exploration and the complexities of relationships, both human and spiritual. And by Death is a Warm Blanket, that they released in 2019, Hardy's lyrics are sometimes outright nihilistic, sometimes searching for a new kind of belief, maybe not in God, but in connection, rebellion, and survival. This tension between the spiritual and the secular, between faith and freedom, is a secret weapon behind Microwave's best work. I think that's really how they pull out that emotional. They're just going really cerebral on the human mind with their lyrics. So let's go album by album. So 2014, Stovall, their debut for full length. It's a raw, messy, beautiful explosion of post-hardcore, pop punk, and emo tunes. Heavy themes of faith loss, growing pains, guilt, and freedom. If you have ever left a religious upbringing and needed an album to scream to in your car, that album is it. So the album Much Love in 2016 was a little bit more polished. Songs like Dull and Lighterless, they kind of reflect the struggles with addiction, heartbreak, and depression as well. Musically, they leaned a little bit more into pop rock, but they kept their teeth sharp on that album. It still had that grit. The album Death is a Warm Blanket in 2019 was their heaviest album yet. Grunge, hardcore, even metal influences on that album. This album saw Microwave supporting acts like Jimmy Eat World and getting major critical talks around the music scene. So it's dark, it's moody, and searingly honest about feeling hopelessness, but not without a strange beauty to it. So let's start Degeneracy. Yeah, let's start Degeneracy in 2024. Their newest album under Pure Noise Records. This album is all about pushing boundaries, musically and thematically. More playful at times, more experimental, while still anchored in the emotional renaissance that they always have. So let's get into their touring buddies and their festival appearances. So Microwave isn't just locked into the music hardcore world. They've toured with a wide range of audiences and artists. They've toured with Let Live, the Wonder Years, the pop punk heroes of the Lansdale area, Jimmy Eat World, who I'm sure you probably have heard of, Motion City Soundtrack, which if you've been to an emo night, you've absolutely heard their music. They're indie rock veterans. The bands Can't Swim, Boston Manor, who I love, Church Drug, and more underground emo and hardcore scene bands than I can count. They've also done extensive headlining tours, selling out clubs, theaters across the United States. Their 2024 U.S. tour with Origami Angel, Heart Attack Man, and Carpool Tunnel is a showcase of how Microwave bridges newer gen emo with a more traditional roots. So the festival highlights that they've played: Wrecking Ball Festivals in 2015, sharing the bill with acts like Title Fight, American Football, and the Get Up Kids. Talk about an emo festival. And then the festival Shaky Knees Festival 2024, bringing their heavier sound to a traditionally more indie alt-rock audience. Roundabout Festival in 2024. They also played a new Detroit-based festival where they played alongside of pop-punk bands and alt heavyweights. It's clear that Microwave moves fluidly between punk, emo, and the indie scene, which is a very rare versatility to see in a band. So while Microwave isn't the type of band that constantly is involved in controversy, they have had a few spicy moments, like accusations of scene policing. In 2019, when "Death Is a Warm Blanket" dropped, a few indie music critics accused Microwave of appropriating heavy sounds without paying dues to the hardcore culture. I have some choice words for that little bit. Some hardcore purists claimed that they were just trend hopping. Microwave responded pretty gracefully with, they basically said, quote, "We're just making what feels real to us," unquote. But the tensions highlighted a growing rift in the alt scene between traditionalists and the genre benders for sure. So Mormon criticism. So Nathan Hardy has occasionally gotten pushback from the religious audiences, including accusations that he misrepresented the Mormon faith. Hardy's position, he's telling his story, not trying to speak for everyone. It's an important distinction, but not everyone sees it that way. So critics love Microwave, but it's not just about the music. It's about what the music represents. Emotionally honest, his songwriting strips away the cool veneer of a lot of modern rock hides right now. The genre defiance. They're blending emo, grunge, hardcore, and alt rock seamlessly. It doesn't seem like they're trying to force it at all. Authentic evolution. Every album feels like a step forward, not a rehash of what they've already done. So albums like "Death Is a Warm Blanket" made a best of the year list from Alt Press, Brooklyn Vegan, and Punk News. Their newer material continues to draw praise for being bold without feeling pretentious in any way in the scene. So let's talk about their legacy and their blueprint in the emo rock scene. So they represent the new evolution of emotional rock music. They've shown that. You can question their past without bitterness. You can honor your emotion without being melodramatic. You can blend genres without losing your soul. When older emo bands were about heartbreak and high school nostalgia, Microwave digs a little deeper. Existential dread, spiritual searching, adult grief, and complicated love. As somebody who's 42 years old, almost 43, I have a hard time really, really connecting with those early emo songs that were definitely written by a 19 or 21-year-old. So this is why this band really hits me hard. It's messier, it's heavier, it's more real. And for a generation that's feeling more disconnected than ever, that matters. So if you want a band that sounds like the feeling you get after a long, painful conversation with yourself at 3 a.m., if you want heavier music that doesn't sacrifice melody, if you want lyrics that cut deeper than "I'm sad, she left me," Microwave's definitely the band you want to check out. So some of the favorite tracks that we got from this list were "But Not Often" on the first album, "Much Love, Lighter, Less" on "Death Is a Warm Blanket," "Leather Daddy," and on "Let's Start Degeneracy," "Circling the Drain." Circling Drain's definitely a good one. So that's all I have on Microwave. Definitely a band I would put in the top 10 for people to check out. I definitely feel like they are not a band a lot of people know about. They're definitely one of my favorite bands. Really, really good live from what I've heard. I have not seen them. I've only watched videos. You can watch their live set on Audio Tree, I believe. But you definitely YouTube them. So, if you've been watching the show, I like to plug a local band, and this band, they're from the Lansdale scene. I know we've been covering a lot. The Lansdale scene has a lot to offer. A lot of punk, a lot of hardcore, a lot of alt rock, and this is a punk band that will capture you and surprise you. We're talking about the band Froggy. We're talking about a young generation of musicians. So Froggy, I think I saw them at it was Round Guys. It's the only venue really in Lansdale, but they're from the Lansdale music scene. Now, if you don't know Froggy, just buckle up. You're about to fall in love, at least get a black eye in the best way possible. So, who is Froggy? Froggy's a three-piece band, wild, raw, unapologetically themselves. They formed in 2019. They must have been like 16 at the time. They're young. Though it feels like they were just causing trouble in basements and the DIY spaces forever in the scene there. The lineup, you've got Morgan on vocals and bass, Fiona on guitar, and Brooke behind the drums. Three friends who have decided that the scene needed more noise, more attitude, and a lot more fun. Their sound, imagine the bratty energy of early Riot Girl punk with Bikini Kill, mixed with garage rock, a little pop punk bounce, and just enough slop to make it feel dangerous. I mean that as a compliment to the band. They don't just polish the rough edges, they weaponize them. Now, what really makes Froggy stand out is the way they balance chaos with heart. Sure, they'll rip through a 2-minute song about eating junk food or hating your boss, but you can really tell underneath all of it that they really mean it. There's a love for punk history in this band. There's a respect for DIY spaces and scene. Most of all, there's just a pure infectious joy in just making noise with your friends. It's really cool to watch them live. I chat with one of their dads has reached out to me multiple times, and he's like, you should have them on the show. I was like, they're already on my list. I'm making my way down the list. Don't worry, I got you, buddy. So let's see. So let's talk about their beginning. The band met through school and the Lansdale music scene, a scene that's surprisingly strong, by the way. They're from a smaller town. There's actually a documentary about the Lansdale music scene out there. It's really cool. There's a lot of basement shows and DIY punk hardcore shows in Lansdale, and a kind of community where if you want something to exist, you make it happen yourself. That's exactly what Froggy did. They started playing tiny shows, friends' basements, pizza shops, skate parks. I played the same skate park. It's a cool skate park. I want to say it's like a $2 million skate park in Quakertown that they built. And anywhere that would let them plug in and turn it up to 11. Their first song was recorded fast and dirty, true punk spirits. And instead of waiting for a label or a big break, they just put it out there. And guess what? People noticed because the world needs more bands like Froggy. Bands that remind you that punk isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, being loud, and being alive. Now, we can't talk Froggy without talking about their attitude. They're fun as hell, they're messy, they're weird, but they're proud of it. And they'll write a song about food 1 second, then drop a feminist anthem the next. They're totally fearless about it. It's really cool to watch these. I'm really interested to see how they develop because they are young. They're half my age. So, young 20s. I'm really excited to see where this band goes. And you can tell in interviews, they're the kind of band that'll answer a serious question with a joke, and a joke with something that actually accidentally makes you cry a little bit. They also lean hard into the DIY ethics of the scene. They book their own shows, they print their own merch, recording on shoestring budgets. We've all been there. Staying connected with fans who are more like a big, chaotic, and ride or die family, really. And honestly, that's what's part of why Froggy feels so special right now in the Lansdale scene. In a world where there's so much music and overproduced, overpolished, and overthought music, Froggy feels like a cold beer in a sweaty basement. Simple, immediate, necessary, and refreshing. So they dropped their EP, Sopa de Elote. It's a great dish. It's also a great name. A few years ago. If you haven't heard it, first of all, what are you doing? Second, go check it out after you see them play a show. It's fast, it's bratty, it's full of hooks. It sounds like it was recorded inside a microwave in the best way possible. Tracks like 7-Eleven Nachos are hilarious and unhinged. But there's also a song that hits deeper themes, like navigating being a young woman in a messed up world. There's real punk soul under the jokes. And while we're at it, huge respect to their drummer, Brooke, because the drummer in Froggy's songs aren't just keeping time, they're throwing punches. Every hit feels like it's daring you to hit back harder, especially when you see them live. Their guitar work, Fiona, it's fuzzy, messy, but when you listen closer, there's a lot of smart choices underneath that chaos. Morgan's vocals, man, she sounds like she could either beat you up or invite you to go steal Slurpees from 7-Eleven. Maybe both, if you're lucky. A perfect punk frontwoman. So, where are they now? So, Froggy's been building a name for themselves outside the Lansdale scene, hitting smaller festivals, opening up for bigger DIY punk acts. They've been part of an amazing wave of new punk bands that are proving you don't need a major label to make a major impact on the scene. They've got attention from punk blogs, indie zines, and slowly they're carving out a spot for themselves. But the coolest thing about Froggy is you get the feeling that they're doing it anyway. Whether it's 10 people at a backyard show or a packed basement tour, Froggy's going to show up, plug in, and go full blast. So, Froggy is definitely a Lansdale monumental band that you should check out. I believe Dave Heck has booked them, who was on my second episode, who's in Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties. So make sure you follow them on Spotify or iTunes, whatever you listen to streaming music on, and definitely give them a like on Instagram and Facebook. Show them some love. Tell them the Redbeard sent you. So that's all I have for today. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. Show some love. Comment in the comments down below. And I say I did get a message. What's going on, buddy? Thanks for joining the chat. I'd Mustafasa. I don't know how to say that name. It looks like you came up with that name super drunk. But anyway, that's all the time I have for today. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Get out there and enjoy the sunshine while we have it for a couple hours. This is Luke Eccles with Off the Record, and that's the news.